to support the capital program that's needed for the electric system going forward. And I'll walk through this very quickly with you. But the red line here is margin. Margin is operating revenue less purchase power cost. So it's what we keep to fund our own distribution system, what we keep from sales revenue after we pay TPA. The green line is operating expenses, and that is O&M, that is debt service, and that's taxes and tax equivalents. And the blue line is the electric system capital program. Now, the key here is the difference between the red line, margin, and green line, operating expenses. This highlighted area in yellow represents the amount of cash each year that's available to help fund the capital program. And you can see over the past couple of years that it's begun to shrink a little bit as sales have declined somewhat and you've had some modest expense growth. But over the next 5 years, as we've projected relatively flat margins with very little customer growth projected over the next 5 years, we are projecting some modest expense growth. It's about 4.5% annually. And that's O&M 3%, debt service about 8%, tax equivalents 4%. So you have some expense growth, flat margins, the gap continues to shrink. And as that gap continues to shrink, you have less and less cash available to fund the capital program. And unless you cut the capital program, you're going to have to use more and more or higher and higher levels of debt to help fund it. So by 2015, you've generated no cash from revenues or from operations to fund capital. You would have to be using debt exclusively. Our debt ratio, if that scenario happened, would be in excess of 60%. And our debt coverage ratios, as we showed you back in April, would be dangerously low and most assuredly would result in a drop in our credit ratings. So this is certainly not a situation we would recommend. It is one that would really jeopardize the financial soundness of the electric division. What we do recommend, obviously, is to have the proposed margin increase, basically on this chart, increase that gap and have more cash available from revenues to help fund capital.
Mark, can you remind me what we were adding customers, I guess back 3 years ago, how many per year, and this year, the difference in that was, I think?
Quite a bit. Even for the electric system, we had historically been adding 2,000 to 3,000 customers a year, probably over the last 5-6 years. This year, that's going to be less than 500. Next year, it's projected to be around 300. And for all systems next year, that's really all the customer growth we'll have is just from the electric system. So it is growing. You also have the loss of Panasonic built into this, and we had $1 million in margin a year that we were receiving from them, and they obviously have now closed the plant.
The spike in the margin in 14,
Yes, sir.
is that due to paying out debt? What causes that 13 to 14 spikes?
This right here, sir. That is an additional margin increase that we have planned, 4% in 2014. That's correct. That is in there for planning purposes right now, whether it will actually occur at that time or at that level. But we do foresee the need 3 to 4 years out in the plan to have some other type of margin increase. But that's what represents that increase right there, sir.
And the margin increase, is that going to include Century 2 or not?
Century 2 is not included in this capital program.
Well, I realize that, but I mean, your proposed in the
But this one right here is not there for Century 2.
Okay. But I think you and I talked that
We
even
did.
when we add that, and we're still not going to have to have a rate in double digits.
That is correct. If we said how much additionally would Century 2 add, probably around $5 million to the annual capital program. What additional rate increase or margin would be required for that? It's about 1%.
And it looks like between 2006 and the end of 2008, we had the largest margin.
Right. Yes, sir.
I mean, at least on that graph, that's the largest margin. It had shrunk because the cost has gone up. Capital expenditure has gone down.
It has shrunk, sir, because primarily we had several hotter, I'll call them hotter than normal normal summers, and we had strong load during the summers. That has tapered off a little bit over the last several years, and where we've gotten back to more normal cooling summers, I guess if you want to call it, but that's one of the main reasons for that.
I might recommend that if in 14, if we're going to talk about this again, that we do it after the summer to get a better reflection of, I mean, you know, we don't know what the season's going to be, but if it's cool again, we may or may not be making this rate increase enough, or it may, if it's real hot, we may not need this much, and it might be a better reflection of what has occurred as opposed to what's going to occur.
And along that point, sir, which is a good one, if we had over these next few summers, if it turned out to be hotter than normal again, like it was back here, we might get an additional $1 to $3 million in margin, which would help mitigate what that would be. Yes, sir.
I know that nobody wants a rate increase, and the difference in 11, 12, and 13 between the margin and the operating expenses, is there a best practice of what kind of margin utilities should have to be operating the way that ought to be operating?
I don't know if there is a specific number on an annual level. I guess we look over the longer term on that, Commissioner. Obviously, you don't want to get to a point where it's nothing.
Where it would be
but,
2015.
You know, if it's in the range of $10 to $15 million, I think probably in the range of $20 million that's available to fund the capital program. We would look at it sort of over maybe a 3 to 5 year period of time, and how much of your capital program are you having to fund by debt, and how much are you having to fund by system revenues? And probably in that 40-60 split over that period of time, 60% for system revenues, 40% from debt would be a good rule of thumb.
So what we're doing is, and I think it's important to talk about, is we are, with this rate increase, we are only really gaining the minimum margin that we can gain in order to operate and feel comfortable about where we are. We're not, and if you're on the board long enough, your biases become known, I guess, but my bias being, I don't want to put off what needs to be done for the future, and our Century 2 campaign is important to me, and I think to the board. And I want our customers to understand this rate increase is necessary. I mean, and it's the minimum necessary, but we've got to also prepare for the future. We can't ignore what needs to be done after we're long gone.
And let me make a comment to that. We believe this is the prudent and right thing to do in these economic times. But even within this plan, we have projects that are essential and timely, and we're doing them. And what we've said is, if anything else comes up that needs to be done, we'll do it. And if we have to come back to you for more funding, if that's what's necessary, we'll do it. But right now, we think this is appropriate and prudent. Now, once we come out of this economy, we are going to refocus on Century 2, and we are going to get back to our plan to reinvest in the aging infrastructure. This is really just about addressing these economic times, postponing the projects that can be postponed.